some discussions in chambers regarding this matter. Today is obviously the first day of our trial, and I believe that the first order of business, Mr. Powell, I believe there was some record that he wanted to make regarding motions in limine, and Ms. Zimmerman, I believe he wanted to make some record as well. So why don't I start with Ms. Zimmerman. What is your understanding of the current state of the motions in limine? After our discussion yesterday, it was my belief that most of the limine issues had been settled. I think we may have an issue regarding one of the statements of one of the witnesses. So I don't know.
Yes.
Maybe I should go to Mr. Powell.
Yes, Mr. Powell can answer that.
Go ahead, Mr. Powell.
Thank you, Your Honor. I did file a motion in regard to numerous witnesses with regard to the minutes indicating that they would testify to things that we felt were irrelevant and prejudicial to our client. I think in the state's response, we have perhaps crystallized it down to one witness, and there's essentially one statement from that. The allegation is that sometime in the month or 2 months prior to the incident on April 25th, a witness outdoor would potentially testify. My client told witness outdoor, sort of in an offhand discussion, that he wanted to kill someone and run away to Mexico. This was 1 to 2 months before April 25th. Certainly, there's no allegation that it was in reference to Mr. Rizzo or the situation that happened on the 25th. And so, we believe that it is, like all the other evidence, it is irrelevant. It should be for this jury trial. And I do understand that the potential for prejudice is less, given that we have a bench trial. I think the standard should be the same. I don't believe that's a statement that the court should or would allow to be heard by a jury. The state cites a couple of cases as a statement like this is relevant to my client's intent. Cited in Richard's case from 2023, 809 Northwest 2nd, 80. The difference is pretty significant, Your Honor. In that case, the defendant allegedly was charged with killing his wife and girlfriend, and the allegation was that 2 days earlier he had told a neighbor about that same alleged victim after a fight. Something that started out the argument, I think I'll just kill her. It was a very specific statement. It was 2 days earlier, and it was about the victim that he was ultimately charged with killing. The Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court in that case said they had no problem with that statement 2 days earlier about the same victim coming into the trial. It is not sort of license for any offhand comment that the person says several weeks about an unrelated situation for that reason. And also, the state cites State v. Cassidy, which I think might be miscited. It's 491 Northwest 782. That talks about, when the court is deciding whether a statement is more prejudicial or probative, how bad the state needs the evidence. The state points out that the value is higher here because there's lack of other evidence on the question of what my client's intention was on April 25th. So I don't believe that since it is irrelevant, it is not about the same person or possibly contemplating the same situation as what happened on April 25th. It should not be admitted, even though this is a bench trial. I could not begin to question or state as how serious or unserious that statement was made. If it was made to a friend of his,
know what they say. You get out, you put in. I'm 2 steps ahead of being a step ahead. New game, same dedication. No ads, ever. I don't even need Wi-Fi. You think this is a game? It is.
Mexico is irrelevant. The court is going to hear evidence that it is relevant because he did try to kill someone. Somebody he didn't know. There's no debate about that. And then he went to jail. The fact that he made that statement, I don't think it was an offhand statement given what he did a month later. And it is highly probative. And we have narrowed it down with the other evidence so the court can ensure that it is not prejudicial. It goes to the defendant's state of mind, his motive and intent, not general propensity. That is an allowed purpose under 544B. And we ask that the court allow him to testify to that.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so with regard to this statement, and then I guess first of all, Ms. Zimmerman, did Mr. Powell accurately narrow the issues as far as your concern with regard to the motions in limine?
Yes, I would say about the other witnesses, because of the testimony reflect that the other witnesses would make statements about the defendant's behavior in the months leading up to this event. The state agrees that on direct exam, we will not elicit any testimony regarding that to attempt to narrow it as much as possible. But I would let the court know, and Mr. Powell and I have discussed this, that if he cross-examines someone in a way that would attempt to couch his client's behaviors as being innocent or somehow imply that he didn't have the intent to do something, we may alert the court that we are going to ask on redirect some of those questions to get into that evidence. But he is correct in that we don't intend to present it in the case machine.
All right, and is that your understanding, Mr. Powell?
It is, and I'm not going to list all of the witnesses at this time. I'm not even certain that all of them are actually going to be called by the state at this point. To the extent there are witnesses from college, from the University of Iowa, from the courts, etc., if those witnesses are simply called for identification purposes, in other words, that they recognize my client from photographs or surveillance video, I have no objection to that testimony and would not intend to ask those witnesses any further questions at all. It's the state's choice if they want to put those witnesses up for that isolated purpose. It's the rest of their minutes that I was concerned about, so I think we're on the same page.
All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Powell. All right, so with regard to the statement that remains in question, I'm going to reserve my ruling on that statement simply because if this were a jury trial, the way that we would handle it is I would allow the proponent of the statement to provide an offer of proof, and then based on that offer of proof, I would have some context to decide whether or not the statement itself was or was not relevant. I think that both counsel are aware, or at least should be aware, that this is a bench trial, and if I believe the statement to be irrelevant, notwithstanding the fact that I've heard the statement, I'm not going to consider it, and you won't see it anywhere in my findings of fact. So I'll reserve ruling on that. I'd like to have some more context to determine whether, as Mr. Powell says, this is just an offhand comment that had nothing to do with the event in question, or if, as the state suggests, this comment would illuminate some intent or state of mind on behalf of the defendant. And so I guess we'll have to see about that. Before we get to witnesses, is there anything else on behalf of the state?
No, Your Honor.
Anything else on behalf of the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. First witness, please.
Attorney General.
Oh, I'm sorry, counsel. Yes. If you want to read the trial information, and then we'll get to witnesses. Go ahead.
In the Iowa District Court in Fort Johnson County case FECR 133-583, State of Iowa plaintiff versus Alred Ali Unix defendant. Comes now Rachel Zimmerman and Iowa, accuses Alred Ali of the crimes of, in count 1, robbery in the first degree, in violation of Iowa Code Section 711.1, sub 1, sub B, and 711.2. The defendant, on or about April 25th, 2022, in Johnson County, Iowa, did, with the attempt to commit a theft, commit one or more of the following acts to assist or further the commission of the intended theft, or the person's escape from the scene thereof, with or without the stolen property. He did commit an assault upon another, or threaten another with, or purposely put another in fear of immediate serious injury, or did threaten to commit immediately any forcible felony, and did purposely inflict or attempt to inflict serious injury, to which the defendant ran up behind the victim, grabbed her from behind, tackled her, and strangled her until she lost consciousness, and then removed the victim's earrings from her ears. In count 2, theft in the first degree, in violation of Iowa Code Section 714.1 and 714.2 sub 1. The defendant, on or about April 25th, 2022, in Johnson County, Iowa, did commit theft in the first degree by taking property belonging to another. Such property having a value in excess of $10,000, to wit, the defendant stole the victim's earrings valued at $20,000. Count 3, attempt to commit murder in violation of Iowa Code Section 707.11. The defendant, on or about April 25th, 2022, in Johnson County, did intend to cause the death of another person, and not under circumstances that would justify the person's action. Set in motion a force or chain of events which will cause or result in the death of the other person, to wit, the defendant strangled the victim until she lost consciousness. True information to these charges, the defendant has pled not guilty.
All right, thank you, counsel. And at this point, anything before we get to the witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, first witness.
The state calls Captain Kavar.
All right, good morning. Please come to the front. The witness chair is to my left. If you could please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be true? Okay, please have a seat. And once you're seated, if you could scoot up to the microphone and please speak slowly and clearly into the microphone in response to the questions. All right, when you're ready, you can proceed.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Kaitlyn and Madilyn, Kavars,
Good morning, Ms. Kavars. Are you a resident of Johnson County?
I am.
And are you employed anywhere?
I am.
And where are you employed?
I work at River Children's Therapy in Cedar Rapids.
And what do you do there?
I'm a rehab therapy tech.
I'm going to kind of go back a little bit into the spring or April of 2022. Were you employed anywhere or a student anywhere at that time?
I was a student at the University of Iowa.
And what were you studying at that time?
Human physiology.
And do you recall the evening of April 25th of 2022? And do you recall about where you were located that evening?
I was at our building west.
And what was the purpose of being at our building west?
So, my friend Nani and I had an anatomy exam this morning. It's like a lab practical, so we had to study. We had to actually go into the lab and practice with the specimens that we were going to be tested on. So we had been in the field house for most of the day and out of study halls, and then we wanted to review before we left for the night. So we were looking for building that was open, and most of the buildings that we went to on the west side were closed. And I at the time lived in an apartment on River Street, which is right up the middle of our building west, and I studied there a lot. So I suggested that we go there because it was getting late at night on working west, but I had stayed there quite a bit just so we could get some work done.
And when you say you're done that, you're about to back on the emails?
Yes.
And so you said at this time several of the buildings on campus were already closed. Do you recall approximately what time of the evening you got to our building west?
I don't.
Sometime after dark that day?
Yes.
You may.
Ms. Bernard, I'm going to hand you what's been marked for identification as State Exhibit 1. Do you recognize State Exhibit 1? I do. And can you tell us what State Exhibit 1 appears to be?
It's a map of that part of our city with our building and right at the time.
Are you able to see the art building on that map?
Yes.
And the street that you testified resided on at that time?
Yes.
And then does that map appear to be a fair and accurate depiction of that portion of Iowa City?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, the state moves to admit State's Exhibit 1.
Any objection?
No objection.
Exhibit 1 is admitted.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Sure. Do you have it on the screen?
I'm going to throw this out, Your Honor, if that's okay.
Okay.
I'm going to set it over here so that we can see it on the big screen. I'll put it underneath here. you tell us what the building is between the Art Building West and your residence?
Oh, for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Washington. So on the evening of April 25th of 2022, you and Ms. Amos were studying at the Art Building West. Do you recall about what time you left the Art Building that night?
Somewhere in the neighborhood of 10:30.
Okay. And do you recall if you, what door of the building you went out, or what side of the building you went out?
We went out the back door, the one that opens to the parking lot, and there's a fire escape there.
And what was the purpose of moving out that door?
So since I lived right up the hill and it was really cold, whenever I was walking, because I didn't know why I studied at Art Building West, I would walk through the visualized building, because you can go with the front doors and then go out the side doors and you're already halfway up the hill. Yeah.
So those doors were a little bit closer then to the visual arts building and to the your residence.
Yeah.
You're going to make a motion?
You might.
Ms. Carson and Energy was marked for exhibit or for identification as state exhibits 2 through 7. Just take a minute to flip through exhibits 2 through 7. And you recognize exhibits 2 through 7.
Yes.
And what do those photographs depict?
They're different angles of Art Building West.
And are those all a fair and accurate depiction of various places around Art Building West?
Yes.
At this time, the state would move to admit state exhibits 2 through 7.
Any objection?
May I briefly word out the witness, Your Honor?
Yes.
Ms. Gonzalez, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I just want to clarify, the pictures that the state just showed you, states exhibits 2 through 7 are the same buildings, is that right?
Yes.
And you don't have any knowledge of when or how recently these photographs were taken? Okay. No further questions and no objection to that.
All right. Thank you, counsel. So exhibits 2 through 7 are admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I have a motion?
Yes.
So, Ms. Barnes, I just want to start with state exhibit 2.
Okay.
And can you just tell us kind of what angle this is viewing of the Art Building West?
So this looks at the back of the building. It looks like the picture is taken from the parking lot behind Art Building West.
And would that be the same parking lot that you said you would cut through to go up towards your apartment?
Yes.
Street exhibit 3 is a slightly different angle. Again, is this a similar view of Art Building West?
Yes.
And can you tell us what angle or where we're viewing Art Building West in the State's exhibit 4?
It looks like the front of the building.
So this would be the opposite side from the pictures that we just viewed, is that right?
Yeah.
And State's exhibit 5. This is another sort of view of the front and side of that building.
Yes.
And we see some water pond right next to Art Building West. Does that look familiar to you as well?
Yes.
And is there a walkway around that pond area?
Yeah, there's like a boardwalk kind of situation with some tables.
And State's exhibit 6, another view of the walkway area.
Yes.
And lastly, State's exhibit 7, you testified that there was a boardwalk area. Is this what you're referring to here in State's exhibit 7?
Yes.
And can you tell us that you keep walking, forward along this boardwalk, where would you end up?
So there's a sidewalk that goes around the building, and then the back exit that we left out of is right there, like where the building ends. And then if you keep walking there, you will end up in the parking lot.
So the end of this boardwalk is about where you exited the building and finished studying that.
Yeah, around a little bit, yeah.
Okay. And Mr. Howell has briefly asked you some questions about the time of day. You had testified earlier that it was dark out when you left the building, is that right?
Yes.
So these don't show exactly what the area looked like at the time that you left, is that fair?
Yeah.
If we look at State Exhibit 2, obviously, there's some other things that maybe a vehicle and things that are in the picture. Those weren't necessarily in the photograph or in the art of the class when you were there, is that right?
No. Or yes, it is, right.
So can you tell us when you came out and exited the art building west that evening, what did you first see? What drew your attention when you exited the building?
So Maddie and I were talking, so I didn't notice at first, but she stopped talking, and then I noticed that there was a woman on the ground who appeared to be unresponsive, and a man standing above her.
And is the parking lot area where you exited at this time of night, is it well lit? Is it easy to see?
No, especially when you first walk out, you can see there's like an overhang, and that is like shadow.
So you testified that there was a woman that appeared unresponsive. When you say unresponsive, were her eyes closed? Was she like still? Can you describe her?
I was not close enough to see if her eyes were closed, but she was on her side in like a position that I would just lay down on the sidewalk, you know what I mean? And she was quiet and not moving.
And you testified that you saw him standing over her. Can you describe his relation to the woman on the ground? As far as when you say standing over her, can you describe that?
Like standing next to her, like kind of looking down at her.
And so he was looking at the woman on the ground when you first understand.
Yes.
Did that man say anything to you at that time?
Yes. There was kind of a brief like pause. I think they were all processing. And then he said, "Look, she was walking and she passed out."
And did he say anything else to you at that point?
Yes, he said that he was going to call 911.
And what did he do next?
He ran really fast away.
And do you recall which direction that he ran in?
Yeah, he ran up the hill towards, there's a flight of stairs kind of on the side of the visual arts building, and then a sidewalk that goes around the back, and he ran up the hill and up the stairs.
So you saw the man go around behind the Arbor West Road and up a set of stairs with the visual arts building.
Yes.
Are you able to recall what the man was wearing that night?
So kind of, I remember telling law enforcement afterwards that he was wearing a big green coat and jacket situation.
And kind of, you say a big, like a winter coat,
Yeah, like a
puffy jacket. Do you remember anything about his facial features or anything that you can remember about the description of the man?
No, so it was pretty dark, and like I said, it was under that overhang, so it was really hard to see, but I remember that he was tall.
So after the man took off from the visual arts building, what happened next?
So I'm a CPR certified in my first aid training, so I remember like as soon as I observed that there was a woman around and potentially like an emergency medical situation, I went into that mode of like assess the scene. And so I looked around to make sure they were safe to enter. And then the next thing you do is you point to someone and you say, you call 911. And I like got to that point, and somebody's like, oh, I know, call 911. I was like, oh, great, cool. And then I turned back to her. And then Donnie was on the ground helping her already. And then I think Maddie realized first, but she said, like, I don't think he's calling 911. I think he's pretty gone. I think you should call him.
And what did you do at that time?
Well, I looked for my phone, and I couldn't find it in my bag because I was moving a little bit. So then I looked for the phone and I called my husband.
And while sort of this exchange was happening, did you notice anything else about the woman? Did she ever appear to be in consciousness?
She did, but not until a little bit later. I was on the phone with the dispatchers, and they were asking me some questions. And I did notice that when she began to stir a little bit.
Did you notice that she said anything at that time?
She didn't say anything right away. It was weird because I don't know that she was fully conscious, but she like tried to sit up and like push and like get away. She was really panicked.
And as she sort of regained consciousness, did you recall her saying anything at all?
So the dispatchers were asking questions like if I knew how old she was and if I knew what had happened. So I remember kneeling in front of her and asking like, hey, do you know what happened? How old are you? So I would have answers to give. And I remember her trying to talk to me, but like nothing coming out.
And you say that, was she moving her mouth and attempting to speak at that time?
Yeah, her mouth was open, but it was like almost like there was an obstruction that she couldn't make sound.
Did you make any other observations about the woman laying on the ground?
There was a puddle of what I assume is urine. I don't know for sure, but the size and the placement led me to believe that on the sidewalk. I believe she was wearing a scarf, and I know she had a coat on.
Was there, do you recall the weather or whether there was any recent rain or any other puddles on the ground at your observation?
No, it was dry.
So after having that conversation at 911, what did you do next then what did you do next?
So I was on the phone, and then I heard sirens, and I realized that the ambulance wouldn't be able to find us that easily because we were out the back. Like, we hadn't moved at all, so we were still kind of in the dark. So I went around the building and waved out the ambulance and pointed at where to go.
And were you able to direct the ambulance back to the location of the building?
Yeah, back to the parking lot.
And after the ambulance arrived, describe what happened next.
So the paramedics came out. Maddie was on the ground with her, and I was going to stay back, so I moved out of the way so the paramedics could do what they needed. And I remember one of them kneeling on the ground in front of her and asking, "What is your name?" And it was kind of the same situation where she was trying to speak. She was a little more successful this time, but I didn't hear her say anything, but the paramedic came back and was like, "Oh, did you say your name was Anne?" And then the paramedic asked, "Do you know what happened?" And I didn't hear her answer either, but the paramedic had to lean in really close. And then leaning back and he said, "Did you say you were strangled?" And she gave like a little nod. And then the paramedic turned to Maddie and I and said that you guys are going to need to stay here. And then he radioed for law enforcement.
And did law enforcement eventually arrive?
Yes.
Did you provide your information to law enforcement at that time?
Yes.
And then after you spoke with law enforcement, did you explain that after that?
Yes. After they told us that it was all right for us to leave.
And you testified earlier that your intention was to go back up and hill toward your apartment, is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. I have a question.
Cross-examination.
Briefly, thank you. Mr. Morris, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
originally told police that you thought the man standing over the woman was wearing a green coat. Is that right?
Yes.
That's what you thought at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, since then, you have seen photographs, maybe from surveillance, that sort of thing, of a person purported to be my client. Have you seen those?
Yes.
And in those, you agree that my client was not wearing a green coat.
No, it's not great.
So you agree with me that what you initially reported from what you witnessed was inconsistent with what my client was allegedly wearing.
What I initially heard, yes. Yeah.
In other words, if it was my client standing there, he wasn't wearing a green coat.
No.
Right? So do you believe your initial testimony about what the person was wearing was wrong?
Yes, it was wrong. It was dark, and I know that one of the first things people get wrong is usually the colors of things, but I remember the shape pretty well.
Okay. And you also agree with me that in terms of that recollection of what the person may have looked like, you've now seen photographs since then, and I think you may have said previously that now your memory is kind of affected by the pictures that you show. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know how long it was after this person left, right? And the woman was there. How long, if you know, before she started, as you said, trying to talk, kind of coming to, so to speak?
I don't think it was until I heard the sirens.
And I guess my question is more, was it a couple of minutes? Was it 5 minutes? Was it an hour?
I'm really terrible at estimating time, so I cannot give you a letter when it's wrong.
You agree that by the time the paramedics were there, was the woman sort of at least conscious and at least trying to explain what had happened?
Yeah, she was conscious, but, and she was sitting, but Maddie was sitting behind her, so she wasn't sitting unsupported at that point in time.
And you have really no estimation as to how long it took for her to go from unresponsive to being able to talk to the paramedics?
Not one that I can tell you confidently, but I just assume like 5 minutes-ish.
Roughly 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Can you read it?
No.
Okay, thank you. You can sit down. Next witness, please.
The state calls Madilyn House.
Counsel, do you still need a matter? Should we take that?
Is it okay, we have witnesses who want to stay or we're not going to recall support?
Do you have any plans to recall any witnesses?
I know, Your Honor, would it be all right if I'll try to answer this question, but would it be all right if we sort of go witness by witness on this question rather than blanket?
Yes.
I have no objection to this Gavar's bringing.
All right. Next witness. All right, come on down to the front, please. The witness chair is to my left. If you could raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give will be true? Yes. Please have a seat. And then, once you see the speaker speak into the microphone, please speak slowly and clearly in response to the questions and into the microphone, all right?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Counsel.
Can you please state and spell your name?
Yep, Madilyn, Madilyn, Amos, Amos.
Good morning, Ms. Amos. Are you employed anywhere?
Yeah, I work at the Children's Hospital here in Iowa City.
And are you a resident then of Johnson County, Iowa?
Yeah,
At that time?
I was a student at the university.
And what were you studying at that time?
Human physiology.
Around the evening, or on the evening of April 25th of 2022, do you recall that evening?
Yes,
Did you recall what you were doing?
we're studying.
And when you say we,
the NK bars.
And do you recall where you were studying
At the art building west.
Have you ever been to the Art Building West?
I have not.
And do you recall about what time you arrived at the Art Building?
I don't remember the exact time, but it was light out when we got there.
And after you finished studying for the evening and went to leave, do you recall what time you left?
I don't remember an exact time, but it was dark at that point, and it was after the building had closed.
Okay, so sometime after dark after the building.
Yes.
And do you recall which door or where you exited the building at?
We left out the southwest door,
And is that toward the front of the building, toward the main doors, or toward the back?
the back of the building.
And do you recall the purpose for going out those particular doors?
It was the closest route to walk back to Kate's apartment.
And when you exit out those kind of back doors, can you tell us where you exit out to? The parking lot, what area do you observe when you walk out?
There's a pond to the left, and then once you keep going out, there's a parking lot.
Your impression of recollection, that states has been 2 and 3.
Yes.
Ms. Amos, I'm just going to show you a photograph that's been admitted as State's Exhibit. State's Exhibit 2. Does that area look familiar to you?
Yes.
Can you just tell us what that area is?
The back of the art building.
And would that be a depiction of the area that you came out from the art building from?
Yes, around that area.
And obviously in this photograph, it's daylight and the sun's out. You testify that it was after dark when you left on this day, is that right?
Yes.
Is that area well lit, or did you this evening come out into the parking lot?
There are lights in the parking lot, like street lights.
And after you exited Art Building West on April 26th, can you just describe what you saw?
Yeah, we were walking out of the building, and we saw a woman on the ground and a man standing beside her. He was pointing at her, and he said she was walking, and she just fell.
Can you describe when you see a woman on the ground? Did she appear awake? Did she moving still?
She appeared to be unconscious.
And you said that the male that you saw was standing by her.
Yes.
Do you recall, and you said he was pointing at the woman on the ground?
Yes.
And after he made the statement to you that she was walking, she just fell, do you recall if you made any further statements to you at that time?
He said, "I'll call 911," and then ran off.
And you said you ran off. Was it a run, a jog?
It was a run, yes.
Do you recall anything about that individual, a description of his clothing?
I remember that he had dark curly hair and was wearing like a big puffier jacket.
And after the man went off, what did you do next?
I checked on the woman on the ground. I made sure that she was breathing. I checked for heart rate. It sounded as though she was aspirating, so I rolled her onto her side, and then I asked Kate to call 911.
And do you have experience in sort of assessing medical situations?
I did not at the time, but I do. I had a friend whose mom had seizures, so as soon as she was having a seizure, I felt comfortable kind of helping her out of that.
So you checked, was the woman breathing at the time you checked?
She was.
Was she conscious or awake?
She was not.
And what happened after you sort of checked her vitals?
At one point, she rolled up onto like all fours and kind of sat up. She said something about he pushed me. It kind of sounded like, but her voice was very raspy, and she was very disoriented at the moment. And then she kind of just like leaned back into my lap until the ambulance arrived.
And did you have any difficulty in understanding her when she was making those statements to you?
Yes. ask where we were at. And then once the ambulance got there, the woman said something along the lines of, "He strangled me." The EMT paramedic, I'm not sure who it was, asked, clarified and said, "Did you just say that he strangled you?" And she said yes, and that's when they called officers to the scene.
And at the time that she was making those statements, did she continue to sound grasping and difficult on her?
Yeah, she was a little bit easier to understand at that point, but still very raspy.
Did you make any other observations of the woman or the area around you at that time?
Her wallet was not in her purse. I had picked up her purse and her wallet, but her wallet in her purse. She was also wearing rainbow gloves. One of them was not on her hand. It was also on the ground, so I picked that up and put it in her purse as well.
So the wallet was laying on the ground outside of her purse.
Yes.
And once you picked those items up from her, what happened next?
She was up in the ambulance. I gave it to the paramedic, and they left.
And then at that point, did you have a conversation with law enforcement?
Yes.
And provide your information about what you had seen?
Yes.
And earlier, you testified when the man that you saw ran off. Did you observe what direction he ran or where he went?
He ran east towards the river.
Thank you. I have no further questions on this.
Cross-examination.
Thank you. Ms. Amos, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So, back when you were, my understanding is you made physical contact with this woman who eventually finds this years ago, right? You didn't know her at the time.
I did not.
You sort of dealt with her, and then your friend Kate was the one that called 911.
Yes.
While you were sort of checking out this woman and checking her pulse and that sort of thing, do you have any idea, just for our benefit, about how long it was from the time you first sort of made contact with her before she started trying to talk and sort of coming around?
I'm not sure.
I mean, was it 30 minutes? Was it?
It was probably less than 15, less than 10.
Okay. And then you said that eventually she tried to sort of get up on all fours or sit up, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Was that within that time frame too?
Yes.
And then you said her voice was still sort of affected, but I thought I got from your testimony that it was getting better as she tried to talk.
Yes.
Right? Once the EMTs were there, was she fairly able to converse with the EMTs?
Not well.
Did you hear her when she was in the ambulance and that sort of thing?
Not when she was in the ambulance, but until she got in the ambulance, I was in.
And you would agree she was at least conscious at that point?
I believe she was in and out of consciousness. I don't think she was fully conscious.
And she was making statements